To escape the gravitational pull of the earth is one thing. But my God, to escape the limitations of consciousness and the nervous system is quite something else. When Parsons and Hubbard went into the desert to create the Moonchild, they created the Moonchild.
The lost of the demons defeated. The lost of the demons defeated. Pan. I am a man. Do as thou wilt as a great God can.
Jack Parsons wasn't merely a rocket scientist who dabbled in the occult. Rather, Parsons was an occultist who dabbled in rocket science.
Well, Thomas, how are you?
Hello, Neil. It's good to be here. I see I get a bit of sunshine there, and
it's nice out there.
Yeah. So here we are, number 16A.
16A,
We don't talk about 15. 15 is like a family member we don't mention, and it's like channel 37 on the UHF band. It's a mystery why it's closed down. So this is 16A. And today this will be on my channel, and we got an interesting film for you today, which we'll talk about later. A bit different than what we normally cover, and there's what we're going to go into. We probably might as well go into it because there's not a lot to talk about this week, and you're probably all sick of the Rona thing like we are.
Yes.
So don't forget, Neil is where are those tours you're having, Neil?
Oh well, I've got some one-day tours this month and next month, and then Anglesey. That's the next to the last weekend in May, and then for a week at the last day in May, we're starting the Scotland tour to the islands of Arran, and we're going to Kilmartin Glen, and stopping in Oban, going across the Mull and Iona.
I love that one. I've been to Anglesey, but I've never been to those islands in Scotland. If it was lived there now, this wasn't been doing, I'd go with you. But I've always wanted to go to. I've never been to Iona. I've always an ambition to go there. And I was just looking at the timetable you set up. It's a really good tour, that one.
It's looking really good. Yeah, I mean, I can still only take 5 people because of the rule of 6. So I can only have 5 people plus me in the minibus, but we've got 2 people booked on it already. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's great that Scotland and Wales have now said that they're going to open up as we are at the same time. So we're free to go. It's fantastic. So if anybody wants to come, just have a look on the Megaliths Tours website. Any questions, just send me an email or give me a ring or whatever. All my contact details are there. Come and fill his last 3 places up.
Brilliant. And look out for Neil on Greg Moffat's
podcast. What's he called?
Legalized Freedom. Sorry,
Legalized
Greg.
Freedom.
I got no sleep last night. Legalized Freedom, that's coming up. And the Jack Parsons film that myself and Jason Robert are working on is full steam ahead. And I have to say, it's the best thing I've ever done. And we've both done together. And that will be out on May 1st. It'll blow your minds. And that's been my project. That's why I haven't been around much lately doing vlogs or anything like that. So, talking of suffering, today's card is the good old The Hanged Man.
The Hanged Man. There he is.
The Hanged Man. That's one. I'll go first. Yep. It's on my channel. The Hanged Man. Well, it's one of those cards like Death. It's it's one of those cards that people see it, or the devil, and who don't know a lot about the tarot, and immediately they're kind of like, it's one of those negative ones in the major arcana. It's one of those cards that go, what's this mean? Or like there's an instant sort of like wince when it comes up in a reading. But the card is like so many things in the tarot. It's got, even when it seems negative, it's positive, because it usually is the sort of agency of change for the better in a person or something like that. Now, the Hanged Man, is a card representing, it shows, as Neil had said before, when you do it this way, it's Michael Flatley or an Irish dancer. But when you do it this way, I don't know what kind of dancer this guy would be. But this is the Italian deck, right? Now he's suspended from one leg upside down from a kind of a rack thing. And this is the concept of suffering, going inside, looking internally at things, trying to see things from another perspective, usually from another person's perspective. So when there's a schism or a conflict, the hanged man often shows up to say to you, you know, don't be concrete minded, look at it from the other direction. It also represents in Jungian psychology the concept of delving into the inner world, you know, the inner world, and looking inside the subconscious mind. And that's often a painful thing, because when you go into the inner world of the subconscious mind, you're often facing things that are quite painful, you know, like the kind of things that that keep you awake at night, that you said or did it in the past and you wished you never said or did it, that kind of thing. It's very much a card related to conscience, to the conscience, and that kind of thing. It's also a growth through suffering, Now this is the pagan or heathen otherworld version, and it's basically the same, except in this one he's bound by both legs, which is kind of a bit weird, because I thought they would go for what the obvious reference here in mythology is, the Nordic one, which is Odin hanging inverted from the Yggdrasil world tree, a tree that has where its roots go into nowhere, or the unknown. And Odin, of course, sacrificed himself from the Yggdrasil tree in order to get the secret of the runes. According to the Icelandic sagas, this is what this was about. He spent 9 days suspended from the world Yggdrasil tree. And I have a beautiful copy of the Icelandic sagas over there. And it's quite a deep and intense one that you get in the regular Germanic or Nordic version. But Odin represents the idea of sacrifice, going within and looking at things from the other side. It's a card that seems kind of uniquely European, because it's one of these cards in the tarot that probably kind of does suit the theory that the tarot is a gypsy arcana that was brought through Europe, and at some point the gypsies encountered the Germanic world of Wotan or Odin and incorporated into it. It may have been Christ at one period on the cross. Of course, there's always been that. If you've seen my film about how, you know, who stole the Allfather on my Beyond Room 313 channel, about the concept of Christ, the actual Christ was rewritten by the Vatican in order to make it more agreeable to the Odin myth, which was already well established within Europe. And so the hanged man is, when the card shows up, when it's in the upright position, it represents fixity of mind. You're concrete, you can't think, and you need to go look inside, go in to invert yourself into the other side of the issue, the other side of the schism, so you have a balanced approach to it. On the other in the negative side, it's suffering without pointless suffering without growth. Because, and you know, it's a good card for these times, because, you know, you can actually go through these lockdowns and be thinking to yourself, oh, I know it's just a horrible thing, it's a mess. Or you can do things like, well, what me and Neil have been and others have been doing, making films, writing books, making plans. And that's a way of not being defeated when you're in a difficult situation. So therefore, the hanged man's quite a simple card. It's not particularly positive. At the same time, too, its negative attributes are really about overcoming suffering through learning and through wisdom. But the main issue here now regarding this card is to not have a concrete, dogmatic view of the world. Because in order to maintain that dogmatic view of the world, you will suffer, because the world is dynamic and changing, and you'll become stagnant like organized religion. And so that's the hanged man card to me. Over to you,
That's
Neil.
Brilliant. Yeah, I like all the philosophy there side of it is brilliant. It's spot on, and it's kind of what I think this card's all about. There's a bit of symbolism, but the symbolism is quite straightforward. It's the philosophy behind it that is really quite deep, and it's something that it takes a long time to grasp the whole of, really. So it's number 12. Now, in the ancient mysteries, it's called on this middle row of the tableau, as we called it before. Remember, we put them in 3 rows, 777. But this one, the middle row, is the laws of consciousness that the powers work through. So this law is a law of reversal, basically, and it obviously is, isn't it? Because I've got 2 here. I've got the Rider-Waite, and I got the Boater one, which is better, really, but they're all good. I like the way one of yours also had this significance of his head is actually below the level of the land, of the earth, so it's really seeing beneath. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I was impressed with that. That's good. Because for some reason the Rider-Waite doesn't do that. You think it will, but anyway, the law of reversal. I dug out a couple of paragraphs here. One is just from my old notes about the law of reversal, because in the ancient mystery they say this is the most important law of the whole lot. Anyway, so I'll read this paragraph to you. To reverse the conditions of misery, disease, and failure, and substitute them for the opposites of health, happiness, and success, it's necessary to think and speak and act in ways which are the reverse of those which most people think, speak, and act. So it's about us seeing seeing the opposite as people who want to build their own personal wisdom up, I suppose. And from Buddha's doctrine, the Dhammapada, this says, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It's made up of our thoughts. If a man thinks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. Hatred does not cease by hatred at any time, but is ceased by love. This is an old rule, it says. So it's following this idea of reversal, and again, as if what you think, the whole thing through a lot of the mysteries is what you think is what you get, basically. So that's what it's saying. So the Hebrew letter associated with it is mem. And there it is there. And mem means sea or water. And water obviously was the first mirror. So it is the first reflection. And water reverses everything, doesn't it? As you look into it, it's everything totally the upside down. So this takes you to the idea of a cult. The regular prima materia we always talk about, the one thing that everything's made out of. So what it's saying here is this prima materia thing is actually liquid. So it's saying that your mind can actually change. Your mind does change everything, you really think about it. But there's a saying that your mind can change. The power that creates a thought creates a diamond or a piece of metal. It's that mystery tradition sort of way of looking at things. So we've got to reverse, basically, or try and learn to reverse everything we see around us. He's suspended, isn't he? So the idea is that the guy is not free. He's tied up, and he's hanging upside down. But all you got to do is reverse him round, and like you say, he becomes Michael Flatley again. Well, he's freedom, total free. I mean, in actual fact, it's a good representation, because the guy's dancing, he's free, and he's on the stage there. There are things on it like his white hair, which is a part of the symbolism. I mean, a little bits of symbolism aren't that important, to be honest, at the moment. It's the overall meaning. I mean, he has a blue coat on, and that represents subconsciousness always. So what he's saying is he's using the subconscious, and also because his legs are like crossed out, it's a number 4. And number 4 is the emperor. So he's using the reason of the emperor to organize subconscious thought or subconscious activity. So that is, I'm trying to think of some examples, because you've got, it's like the number as well is 12, so that's 1 plus 1 and 2. So then that is 1 is the magician, which is concentration. 2 is the high priestess. So you're back into concentrating on something that's going to change subconsciousness, because high priest is subconscious. Anyway, so I would say the whole thing is reversal, as if what you're looking at. I mean, there's so many examples. I mean, color, for instance. If you're looking at something that's red, then you're thinking, oh, that's a sheet of red, whatever. But in actual fact, it's not. It's everything except red, because things absorb light, the rays of light, and sometimes there's only one part of that ray that isn't absorbed by the object, and that reflects back at you. So the only bit of the spectrum which isn't absorbed, which isn't that thing, shines back at you. So the thing that is red is actually every other color except red. That's the only thing that's bouncing off. So you see, but it's that, if you can bring that sort of thought into everyday life, then that's what this means. I mean, the whole occult thing that we see around us as well. Have you noticed that governments do this, don't they, all the time? They're always telling you the totally opposite. The ancient wisdom says that 90% of what we see is exactly 100%, exactly reversed, not just a little bit, but exactly reversed round. So it's kind of something that you need to spend a long time thinking about, seeing into really right into an object, see what it really is, until you find out that it actually is totally the opposite. And I think that works in politics, it works in physicality, and it works in emotional things. And I think I'll leave it at that. We've got the message over.
I love that. I love what you said. Another thing too is that when you're talking about people who things are going well for them, say in their business or something, and they get the Hanged Man card a lot in readings, it may be, I tell people, well, it may be okay to you, but there could be people scheming behind your back or plotting behind your back. And the pain of discovering that people you trusted who are doing this to you is part of the Hanged Man's suffering as well. So I said, it's like suddenly, oh my God, they're stabbing me in the back. That's a very painful thing.
Absolutely.
When you put trust in somebody, that they weren't straight up with you. And that's often, the Hanged Man often reveals that this the enlightenment is sudden. Oh my God, they're messing with me behind my back, this kind of thing. And the betrayal of finding out that someone was playing mind games with you is an awful thing. Especially if you thought they were really good friends. And that's that kind of thing. In the Rider Waite and also in the Tothvek, the leg, the one leg that's bent over is highly exaggerated in terms of making a cross. And I've often wondered, is that Saint Peter? You know, the Saint Peter was crucified upside down. The Vatican cross is inverted. You know, the papal cross of the Vatican is an upside down cross. People think it's satanic. It's not. It's the cross it's the throne of Saint Peter. Saint Peter was crucified upside down because he met Christ incarnation on the Appian Way, and Christ gave him the choice to go to live in freedom and happiness, and he said, no, I won't. I'll continue to preach the gospel. This is the story anyway. And for turning against his God, they crucified him upside down. And that's why the Vatican throne is inverted. It's nothing to do with Satanism or anything like that. And I often wonder, that was that.
Sorry, Thomas, go on.
But what about the halo? The halo on the Rider Waite one is very unique. Not many cards have that. What do you think is the story with that?
The story on this is that it's to show that it's the yellow of the one force. It's like, you know, the color of the fool, which is like saying the super consciousness. It's like, so he's saying that he's actually guided by this superconscious power, which is basically the deity. You know, I was thinking about that, what you just said about the cross upside down. It could be that might not have happened, and they're just it's an esoteric direction. Because there are lots of things in the it could be saying, you know, we're not telling you this, but you know, the best thing to do is not believers, but look at the other side. Yeah.
It comes from paganism. I think that the cross of St. Peter is then acknowledging that they actually took the Odin myth and kind of connected it to the Christ myth. I think that's their little secret. You know, the Vatican and their religion is full of paganism still. They don't come out and directly say it, like the obelisk, the Egyptian obelisk in the middle of St. Peter's Square. What's that all about? And then you have these pine cone symbolisms all over the Vatican, which is the symbol of Dionysius and Dionysian cults, which are basically cults devoted to like hysteria and fame. And I mean, this is Dionysius used to whip people with a pine cone on the end of a stick, and that was a big cult in pagan Rome. The whole thing of Dionysius. So they're telling you right there and then that the Pope is kind of Dionysius, and you're kind of obsessed with him because of his fame and his power. And so, yeah, I do agree with you completely. The crucifix upside, that's the story. But I think my theory is Christianity was not flying in Europe, and they had to incorporate in Northern Europe, and they had to sort of dovetail it into in pagan traditions, and they made Odin and Jesus the same thing.
Which is kind of what we did in England as well, especially the north of England, because the old Celtic Christian church, if there was such a thing, which is really just means that when the Christian church arrived, I mean, there's so many green men and lots of things. So the old nature gods are really. I think it just added. It was something. It was taken. It arrived. It didn't say, "Oh, we're all Christians now." It just said we've got a lot more teachings that will mix in with what we've already got, and that's our new church.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's why I have stealing the gigs and everything else like that in churches.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, the crucifix was not used as a symbol of Christianity until about 1,000 years ago. Up until that, it was the fish, or it was a cockerel, or it was a lamb. It only became a symbol of Christianity, the crucifix, although it was all over paganism. It only became a symbol of Christianity when they started to move Christianity into the Nordic world. And they had to, like, you know, they took a god that was incredibly powerful, Odin or Wotan, and turned him into Jesus. And they used that's what I think, bang on with that. That's almost like them going, the Vatican is secrets like that.
Yeah, I think that's what it will be. I mean, the Christianity and the crossover with the Nordic tales and everything. He's so. I think Balder was there, and he's there hung like and they say, "Oh, that's because they became Christianized." Well, no, it's not. Balder was a guy himself who sacrificed himself. It's the same story. It was there before Christianity, but they just took it over. There's so many of these things, aren't there?
Mithra in the Persian world, they took his birthday and everything, and he was born like a virgin on Christmas Day, and you know, there's so much that Christianity was almost like the ultimate mashup of pagan religions, and then with a kind of a Jewish backstory, and that's how the Christianity is.
And that isn't too bad there, really, is it? As that, because that is kind of telling the wisdom traditions or the belief system as it is, which is fine. Everybody's got their own. It's only when it was crunched down in with the Roman Catholic, like 666, well 666 at the Synod of Whitby, where they said, now this is what you'll believe.
Yeah. And it would have been fine. Christianity would have been a fantastic religion, really, if they hadn't started attacking pagans and Cathars and Bogomils and destroying them, you know, and this kind of Karelians. If they had have left the other tribes alone, it probably would have been a very good system, but it became vicious through its nature to convert, the whole crusade thing. And that's what really caused the problems.
That's the whole thing, isn't it? It's when a belief system is free, then you can develop it and you can work with it and you can believe what you want and it becomes your own thing. But as soon as somebody says, right, what's going to happen now is I'm in charge, I will do the whole religious thing for you, and you will believe this. And if you step out of it, you're evil. That becomes a control system. Then it's gone right over to the control system side.
It's like Hinduism has no book or laws or anything, and there's new gods, and the last god that was invented for Hindu was in the 1970s. So new gods appear through its history, and also a lot of Hindus will actually celebrate Christian holidays because they like the story of Christ and the Gospels and stuff. But they haven't become Christians. It's just one more god they can bring into their polytheistic worldview. Christianity was actually like that until the power of the Vatican with Sylvester II and came along, and the Vatican became a kind of a military thing.
Well, yeah, it's what was I going to say then? Yeah, the old Hinduism. It's like I believe in the Western mystery tradition. Well, Hinduism is the Eastern mystery tradition, and it's kind of the same, really. They come out the same in the European route. Yeah, I went over to Kilburn, the huge temple, Hindu temple there. That was fantastic. I just went up there with my ex. Went in and they welcomed us in. It was wonderful, really. And they tell us where to go and where to sit, and they do this thing with a flame and everything, and try to explain what it was. So welcoming, and it's got to be seen to believe all the different deities around, all that mean. There's no reason. It's just like Egypt, really, isn't it? There are different aspects of creation. So that was fantastic. I really like the way they did their religion. It worked for me.
Oh yeah, when I was in Sri Lanka, I used to go to the Hindu temples all the time, and let's be off in the cities or towns where I was the only white man around, and I'm the whitest white man in the world, and I would go into the Hindu temple, and they couldn't have been happier to see you, and friendlier, and more, and everything was cool. There was no problems. They were glad to see you. Yeah, they were. Yeah, welcome you in. So that's the hanged man. Yeah. I hope you get something from that. I will let you introduce the next thing because this was your suggestion. Well, yeah, I read a book years ago by Marcel Pagnol. It was called Jean de Florette, and it was amazing. And the guy, just as a writer, he's superb, and the way he writes, it really is. He's going to be one of the best writers I've ever read his novels. But then the films came out in 1986, and you think, well, is it going to be any good? Is it worth watching? Can they do it? But they were excellent. I just absolutely loved it. It was it just lived up to the books and more. The actors were superb, the setting, the whole feel of it. So do you want me to go through the story, or do you want to do that? Do that because you're more familiar than I am. So you go ahead. Okay, it's simple yet complicated at the same time. The whole setting, as I say, is a very small. There it is. That's the chap. Yeah, Jean de Florette and Madame de Sauce, which we can talk about next week. Madame de Sauce is Madame of the Spring. There they are. It's a very small village in Provence, just after the war. So you're talking about 1918, 1920, and it's all about it's mainly about what happened on the outskirts of the village. And just the setting itself, it just evokes just being in France and that music, the background. It's wonderful. Anyway, it's all about a guy. Well, it's about mainly three men. This first book, Jean de Florette. One of the source, there's more people get involved. So there's the uncle is called Caesar, but they know him as La Papette. It's like grandfather. So it's in French, by the way. So there's the subtitles, but the subtitles are really easy to read. Now he's of the Sauvienne family, and he's massive into family. This is a very, very important thing.
about the whole film, the whole two. He's really into family. It's the most important thing. Well, the problem is he's single, he didn't marry, and he's no children. So he's only got his nephew, Uglon Sabian, and he's just come back from the war, and he's a basic intellect, shall we say. He's not the brightest spark, but he comes back to town and he says, I've got a plan. Got a plan because it's hot over there, really hot. So the Papa says, what are you going to do? We need you to, loads of ideas. Says, I have a plan. And he starts planting carnations. It's going to be flower growing zone, which is fine, which he starts off doing. Let me think. And then there's another house next door with a whole load of area, and he wants to buy this because he thinks if I buy it, I can transfer, get double my size. But the thing is, water. So he goes to see the guy who owns the house, who's kind of buy it, and he says no, and he starts this argument. The guy's up a tree, so I think he ends up falling out of the tree and dies.
He pulled him out of the tree. He murdered him.
Yeah, he actually murdered him. Then he pulled him out of the tree, he smashed his head and died. Yeah, so I was trying to remember whether he fell or whether he pulled. Yeah,
he pulled him and then swung him around, and he was dead. Yeah. And they said we'll make it look like he fell out of the tree. They actually casually murdered a guy.
yeah, just like that. I thought, well, the best thing is we just say fall out. People do fall out of trees, he said, didn't they? People do fall out of trees. Yeah. So they thought, right, we've got a better chance now of getting this property because it belongs to I can't remember her first name, but she was called Florette, and she was called Florette, and she lived in the village, but she moved out of the village. So they thought, wow, the best thing to do here is kill the stream, kill the source, kill the stream. What's the word of it?
The spring.
The spring, yeah, kill the spring. Yeah, so they went to.
And they plug it with concrete ball.
Yeah, they totally seize the whole thing up. And then and the bastards, yeah. And this is the whole thing. I mean, they were bastards, weren't they? All the way through it, the plotting. Well, the evil, yeah, you kind of liked them. And then, so they thought they could buy the farm, and then what's his name? Jean Cadoret arrives. Now he's related to the family that had the farm. This Jean de Florette. They called him Jean de Florette because he was the son of Florette. He arrives in the village, and he's brought his wife, Amy or Ma, and his little daughter, Manon. And he's like one character. He was what's his name? Gerard Depardieu, and he's a hunchback.
Yeah. He's a hunchback, and the acting was fantastic.
Oh, absolutely amazing. So he arrives, and this guy has stick ability. I mean, he's beyond all reasonable levels.
Capacity.
You couldn't put him down, could you? Anyway, no. He decides he's not gonna rent the house. He's gonna move into the house, and he's gonna start work. But just before he arrives, Uglon climbs on the roof and starts smashing the whole house to bits.
Tiles, yeah.
So they won't want the house. I mean, it's difficult to explain the feeling behind all this and the actual emotion of it just by the facts. But so he arrives and he says, he tries to put, and they both try and put him off what his activity. He comes from the city. He's a tax collector, an accountant type in the city. So you don't know how difficult it is over here, blah, 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 blah. And he said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to breed rabbits. That's his decision. Big fences right onto the ground so the rabbits can't get out. And he's all these statistics all worked out about how many rabbits he can breed.
Yeah, he constantly has the manuals from all the agricultural and they are doing traditional Provence farming. Yeah. But he's actually proving them wrong. That's the thing. These technical systems that he brings in, they're actually working.
Yeah, he would have been right if he'd had some water.
He would have been a rich farmer in the first year.
He would have been, yeah. But the bastards actually said to him, "Oh, here's the map. There's supposed to. I'm told there's a spring on the land. They said, well, here's the map, and they found one 2 kilometers away up a hill. They said, oh, this is it here, and he believed them. They thought every day he's trudging up and down with a mule and book the things on his back and water. It's tragic just to watch him do it. So he brings the water every day, backwards and forwards, and he's waiting for. And it all worked out. There's another manual about rain, but it didn't rain. And when the weather did change, it was the Sirocco winds, which just blew the whole dust and everything.
The Sahara Desert on them. That was beautifully filmed. That the way they made everything yellow when they let the desert from the sand from the desert was blowing around Provence. I thought the special effects were very good, like the lightning and things like that.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing was. It took 8 years to film. Apparently, I mean it was. Or was it not? Was it 8 years? Yeah, probably. I mean, and the whole thing was done so well. I mean, it was said to be the best French film ever made. It was
every scene looks like a painting. Every scene looks like a painting. Every shot is beautifully composed.
The old guys, they were going to every now and then. They were going to the town, and of course, the old guys sat there drinking their whatever it is, the wine or whatever. And whenever you've seen them, haven't you? When you've been to Italy and France, and the old guys sat around all day, and the banter between them.
Playing duels or
the old duel.
What's another game? Dominoes. Yeah.
And then so what happens is, it's literally backbreaking watching poor Jean try and make all this work. And every time he does something, it all goes wrong because these guys have stacked all the cards against him. So at one point he says, right, you're wasting your time here. Ogon says to Jean, you're wasting your time. You can't make this work. We'll buy the farm from you if you like. He says, okay, fair enough. Well, what's it worth? He said, well, it's going to be worth 8,000 francs. So he says, great. I'll use that valuation to get a mortgage, and with that mortgage, he's going to go. So what's his name? The original Papiat says, okay, I'll give you the mortgage because I have the money. And then he says to Ogon, well, that means that I'll get interest, and then when he all fails, I'll get the property. I mean, that's a good, proper banker,
he was a gangster. He was more like a gangster now.
Yeah, in a software. Yeah, well, that is gangsterish, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then he so he decided. So with that money, John says, "I'm going to build a well." So he starts digging. He's sweating and nearly dying every day, but there's no stopping this guy. He's determined, and he uses the money to buy some dynamite that is going to explode the well. So he blows the well, rocks in the air, and he starts running in, looking to see if he's done anything. The rocks pile on top of him, one dead Jean. So they then, basically, look at it short, they've got the farm. After all those years and all that work, they've got the farm. So they run straight up to the well, and they pull it out. They pull out the stop, and the water pushes forth. And at the end, Manon, the little girl, sees them and just screams. And they think it's a bird flying over, but she's seen what they've done.
Yeah, and that sets up the second movie, which I haven't seen yet. We'll review next week, but I'm looking forward to it. It's basically a movie about how they murder a guy slowly, and although they didn't murder him, they murdered his dreams. Everything he had the gold, even though he had that golden touch. When things went right, when the rain did fall, the rabbits were tremendous success. His vegetables grew. I remember when the guy helped them with the plow and looked down and saw that was the perfect soil for growing carnations in. And he has this vision of seeing them selling thousands of the guy would in his first year he would have been the richest man in the region if he had had water, and his kindness too. It's like there's a sort of like a kind of a vagrant family, an elderly couple living in a shack, and he tells them they can live there rent free, and this kind of thing. And he's such a decent guy, and it also tells us an interesting story. You get this kind of stereotype of the country person who goes to the city, and he's treated really badly by these city slickers because he's innocent and naive. Well, that works in the other direction when you have an idealistic person from a city, and I see this in rural Ireland all the time, or from, say, someone from another country who's like sort of like ready to settle down here and have a few chickens and grow a few things. And I wouldn't say the locals conspire against him, but he's immediately an out stranger. They're not going to help him. And it's not so bad here now, but it used to be. Do you remember that film with Richard Harris, The Field, about the American buying the field in Ireland, and Richard Harris and his son Sean Bean? It's very similar. Conspire to destroy this man, and they actually murder him as well. But it's a much darker story, because it ties in with things like the famine and why these people in this part of Kerry will not give up this piece of land, because, it turns out that his own mother died there during the famine. And this American, Tom Berenger, wants to buy the land. It's very similar to Jean Defer, but it's much darker. But it's the same kind of idea. This sort of like idealistic person moves into town from the city. He has these ideas to start flowers, rabbits, whatever, and the locals laugh at him, but it's because his tradition. There's even the way the guy says to him, the uncle says to him to the nephew, "Oh, he knows nothing about the farming here. Only the traditional methods work." And yet, with his manuals from the agricultural colleges and stuff in Paris, wherever, he's able to do amazing things. Like he plants the onions in a circle around the olive tree. He was growing tomatoes that were that size, that were rich. He was growing huge potatoes when theirs were still seed potatoes. It was going so well. All he didn't have was water in the cistern. And if he had got a normal rainfall that summer, he would have been fine. But it was a dry heat wave, and it was just the tenacity of the man was staggering. He was like a hobbit in many. He reminded me of Frodo and Sam or something from the Lord of the Rings. But what they did to him was shocking. But even the nephew, you said he had a conscience. He was stupid. He was dumb, but he had, at the same time, he didn't enjoy what the uncle was definitely enjoying, making him suffer, but the nephew wasn't.
He actually became his friend, really, and he was torn, wasn't he?
Yeah, when he cried, when he died, he started to cry. He was crying. The uncle says, "What are you crying for?" He goes, "It's not my heart that's crying; it's my eyes that are crying." He couldn't tell his uncle. His uncle had turned him into a monster in many ways, that kind of thing, and because he was dumb, And I watched it for the first time last night, and it's already one of my favorite films. And it's just, there's nothing not to like about it. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
It's wonderful.
And even the tragic ending, which came out of nowhere and I did not expect, it didn't upset me that much, because I felt like that this man's life would be resolved somehow. And we know, I'm sure the second film, the author does resolve his life.
I can't really tell you what happens, but I'd love to.
Don't tell me. But I'm sure it's
a twist.
Yeah, but it's a highly recommended film. Thank you for sending me the DVD with the subtitles. The subtitles are easy to read. They're big, bold, white letters. Some subtitles are terribly small, but these ones are easy to read. And like I said, you can smell the flowers of Provence.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can taste the food. I mean, this book, it also came out. Remember the time in the 80s the late 80s, when Provence became very fashionable. There was the book A Year in Provence.
This was 1986, and they think this is why Provence got popular, because of these films.
Yeah.
The music was Jean-Claude Petit. But that music in the background, it's just evocative of the whole place, isn't it? Of the whole, it is France. And it keeps you on edge.
Yeah, and you also feel the culture too, the tension of the culture.
Yeah, the tensions in the music as well. Yeah,
and you do feel that when you go to these places, like you go, yourself, when we go to like rural Sardinia or somewhere, you feel a certain kind of tension there. It's like, even though the locals are friendly, that you're a stranger in a strange land.
Tell you what you do. not Sardinia, the little Corsica.
Oh yeah, I heard stories about that place.
Yeah, whenever I've been, well, I've only been there once, but it was you weren't sure you were welcome. Put it that way. You thought, well, I'm going to stay near to the car, just in case. Especially all the signs that are in French, they've all been shot with shotguns because they don't even because they're written in French. They don't accept the French, never mind the English. Very strange.
We don't know how friendly we are in this part of the world. I mean, in the UK and Ireland, we're incredibly friendly, and I think a lot of Americans and other tourists come here and they think everyone in Europe is like us. We're not. On these two islands, we're compared to many parts of Europe extremely friendly and open. It's just a cultural thing.
I know. I get Americans on the tour say, "Oh, you're so polite. Why are you so polite?" It's like, for God's sake, stop being so polite. You're driving along and you just start to let somebody pass. Oh, in New York, we'd have put him straight. Hey, chill out. It's not a problem. Yeah, but we're put down a lot, aren't we? But by ourselves, really. But I think we've got a lot to say, a lot going for us, really. But we did have.
Oh yeah, when you sort of I mean, we live on cold, damp islands for most of the time, and this was especially cold and damp. But I mean, I've traveled all over the world, and I mean, I've lived all over the world, and I have to say, UK and Ireland are still good places in lots of ways. I mean, it's very they're outside, say, of like the traditional immigrant places like US, Canada, Australia. It's we're one of the few countries where foreigners can move onto these islands, and we don't really care. For the most part, people, it's live and let live. We're not obsessed with like stay out. We're not obsessed with that. We're very easygoing about that, and I think I like to think that the reason why America and Canada and Australia are like that is because they got it from the English and the Scots and the Irish, and they got that from us. That we're not, we're not adverse to the stranger.
Yeah, all you want to do is people just to play the game like we do, really. But see, we get told we're not like that a lot, don't we, these days?
We do, but that's because that's the media concentrating on them. And like in this country, there's absolutely no far right. But to read the Irish Times or watch RTE, you think it was the new 1930s Germany the way they carry on. And but that's the media are wicked and evil. We always have to remember that.
Oh God,
the mainstream media.
Well, there's not even any right, never mind far right. I mean, everything, even the Tories are left wing now. So it's like anything that
I know.
Everybody says anything that's slightly, I think we should do what we did yesterday. Nazi.
I know. I'm a 1980s liberal, and I haven't changed my opinions.
Yeah,
and now I'd be considered right wing, but I haven't changed my opinion. I'm still a 1980s liberal. That's I have to use that.
Live and let live in freedom, really. That'll do. That's all I'm bothered about.
And respect people's civil rights, and that we're all happy.
Yeah.
No, that's now considered like not good enough. I have to be. You have to make tokens that constantly show people that you are a wonderful human being. I won't do that because being a wonderful human being, you shouldn't have to demonstrate it. It's innate. And if you're obsessed with constantly virtue signaling or constantly demanding others the virtue signal, they're really saying something about themselves.
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. If you have to keep
and I guess that's in that film, that's on the Florette film, is that in the town, in the village, they were kind of like that. That they were really everything they did to him was like the Hanged Man, a mirror of the dark side of what they really were.
Absolutely, it was. Yeah. There was, and I tell you, also they had a thing about the hunchback, didn't they? I don't know whether it's a French thing with Notre Dame and everything, but they almost saw the hunchback person as evil in some way.
Yeah. And even when they were playing bowls and they threw the ball at him and it splashed him.
That is just
aim for his hunch next time.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and even though
that is just evil, isn't it?
He had difficulty. He felt so bad for him. He had difficulty carrying the pail of water on his back because the hunchback kind of pushed it off into an awkward position. So he was like this all the time.
Yeah.
He was a giant, huge, like lug of a man, you know.
Well, yeah, Gerard Depardieu, you know what he's like. He's a long, huge guy, and he was a lovely guy, and he was just leaps and bounds intellectually and everything, and beyond all the other people that were there.
And spiritually very deep.
Yeah,
he was ironically more connected to the land than they were, and he was a city slicker. Yeah,
because he loved it, didn't he? He said it was just the wonderful view. He said at one point, I love the wonderful views. Oglan said something like, well, views mean nothing, you know, because he'd been there all his life, so he didn't appreciate it.
Yeah. They don't know it. To them it's just hardship. The countryside is a factory to make money from. But he saw it the same way, but he saw it as a kind of a magical pursuit to make.
Yeah, he had that spiritual view of the whole thing.
Yeah. Like even when he was mating the two rabbits, he says, "Go make beautiful babies" to the male rabbit.
Yeah. That was fantastic film. I'm glad you liked it. Anyway,
I loved it. And I can't wait. I can't wait for the second part. I'll watch that next week. But yeah, we will. That's basically it for this week. You have to see the movie. I'll put the poster up here and stuff. And we're going to do the second part of this next week. And as usual, any films you want us to talk about, we'll do. I don't particularly like. I'll tell you what films I don't like. I don't like political dramas or things like that. My kind of favorite films tend to be horror films or fantasy or really good sci-fi films. But I also like things like this. I like the old Hollywood classics. We did Dr. Zhivago, and we did.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And the Argonauts. I love those kinds of things too. But I see people suggesting things like political films. I don't. That would be the kind of thing I'd watch anyway. It wouldn't be my thing. But thanks for all that, and thanks for holding on. And we'll see you for number proper 17 next week on this. So thanks again, Neil, for coming along. This will be on my channel, and don't forget to subscribe to both channels and to both playlists on both channels. And give it a good share around. I'm blocked on Facebook again. You know when I'm blocked on Facebook?
Good at that.
Oh yeah, but it's the same thing again. I was blocked for being racist against Irish people. Exactly, that's what it was.
Oh dear.
I posted something like, "What the hell is wrong with the Irish?" I was talking about the vaccine passport. Hate speech, 30-day ban. Yeah.
God grief.
So
you just don't know how to make it up.
You'd be racist against yourself.
Against yourself. Self-racist.
Okay. I'll see you, Neil. All the best. See you, everybody.
Yeah, brilliant. See you all in number 17. Bye.